my right arm would not be half this swole, which it's halfway swole because I'm lifting a 20
All right, between the last
weight.
video and this one, you're only working out the right arm. Is that the only one that matters?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk MVP here because the right arm is kind of the MVP of the arm.
Does it have to be a player?
Well, that's a very good question. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
So the prohibitive betting favorite for MVP right now is Brock Purdy, which comes as a bit of a surprise to some people or a disgrace to some people.
Absolutely. I mean, all right. Traditionally, this has always gone to the best team's quarterback, right? This has always been pretty much a quarterback award.
Yeah.
This should be the first year that a wide receiver wins the MVP. I think if you ask any actual player, don't ask the media, ask the players. And there's one person that, if wasn't injured, would have broken 2,000-yard mark as a wide receiver. That's Tyreek Hill. He's hands down has to be the most valuable player if you want to go by that alone. If you want to call it something else and maybe call it the most valuable quarterback or the winningest quarterback, then let's change the award name.
It's valid.
But it can't go to Brock Purdy. He's not even the most valuable player on that team.
It raises that very question. Is Brock Purdy even the MVP of his own team? Tyreek Hill is a great pick, Dirk. I'm going with Christian McCaffrey, one of the most dynamic running backs we've seen in a very long time. I think Tyreek Hill is a fantastic pick as well. McCaffrey, since he's come over to San Francisco, has scored a touchdown in like almost every single game. And it feels like I'm always playing against whoever has him in fantasy, which is agonizing.
It also brings up another question. Can you be the most valuable player if you're not even the most valued player by your owner? If you're not being paid very high, how can you be the most valuable player? Well, I mean, I can see. I understand that. I'm just, like, for argument's sake here. Like, you're not even the most valued player on the team.
No.
In multiple ways.
Which I think is valid. I will say this. Brock Purdy has played very well given the parameters around him. He also has maybe the best tackle in football, maybe the best tight end in football, a pair of very dynamic receivers, and certainly I think the best running back in football. So it certainly has a strong accompanying cast, maybe the Avengers. With that said, can you fault him for it? Well, I don't know that you can fault him for it, but I will say this much. He's having a very good season, and it is statistically better. But go look at Jimmy Garoppolo's 2019 numbers.
Look, there's nothing against Purdy in terms of, like, he's playing very well. I could not do that. Absolutely could not do it. But the point is that he's playing very well, and this isn't a testament. The statements I'm making here isn't against Purdy per se. It's just that he's not. I mean, he's Mr. Irrelevant of the draft. He is not the most valuable player, and I can't. We were saying this 5 weeks ago when I was in DC, Mike. Like this talk needs to go away. Let's just name 5 players that are more valuable than Brock Purdy on the team that he's on.
I think I already named them.
Name them all, 5.
Well, I mean, we have Trent Williams.
Okay.
We have
CMC.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
We have probably George Kittle. That's debatable, but probably. Definitely Warner.
Bosa.
Fred Warner. Yeah, Bosa, Nick Bosa.
You can even start going to Deebo Samuel. You can go to Brandon Ayuk. You can even go, I would take Chase Young over having Brock Purdy on my team. I mean, like, we've just named so many. That can't be the case. If there was going to be someone that was a quarterback, that has to go to Lamar Jackson. He is literally the central point of that offense. You saw in the last few years when Huntley gets subbed in and Lamar's on the sidelines, that team isn't even, I mean, they look worse than the Cleveland Browns from 2006. So I guess my point here is that, like, if it goes to a quarterback, it needs to go to Lamar Jackson.
Here's a dark horse quarterback for you. Is it possible?
No cooking.
No. We're not going there. Is it possible, if Buffalo keeps rolling, that Josh Allen gets back into the MVP hunt this year?
Yes, and here's the reason why. If he was going to make a case for the most valuable players, because they won the Super Bowl. Hey, why is this award handed out before the Super Bowl? That doesn't make any sense.
Because they hand out a Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, God, stop it.
Now, let me ask one more thing for you, Dirk. It's called most valuable player for a reason. But if we were to go with most valuable person, does Kyle Shanahan or Mike McDaniel or even John Lynch come into play?
It's John Lynch. Has to be John Lynch.
John Lynch.
The master moves that have happened and acquiring Chase Young in the middle of the season for almost peanuts, it has to go to John Lynch. And just look at that squad. We said in the last video, 98 Broncos. What's another team that looks like this?
Well, let's not compare them to the 98 Broncos until they win this thing. But 49ers, pretty strong roster. You are correct, point made. However, counterpoint before we move on. If Brock Purdy is just your average Brock, he's not Brock Lesnar, he's Brock Purdy. If that is the case, does that not make Kyle Shanahan a most valuable person for getting the most out of Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy and whatever random people he seems to throw out there?
I think you're on point there. And, there's a Coach of the Year award. And I think it's separate. But, there's other coaches that I think probably have a better claim to the Coach of the Year award because they don't have the roster or the adversity that they've had to go through injuries as other people like Stefanski. Stefanski probably is making the strongest case, in my opinion, for Coach of the Year. Going through multiple different quarterbacks, right? Having potentially an 11-win season. There's a strong case, especially out of an organization that is traditionally one of the worst, for him to be Coach of the Year. Now, there's some other coaches across the league that I think that can make that case as well. Just like you were saying, Mike McDaniels, with the way that he's changing the game with just some of the movement that he had pre-snap, and just the way that speed is starting to really change the way the offense is played. There's some other coaches as well that we could go down. We don't need to go down the whole list, but I think that he's up there. The thing about Shanahan that I think holds him back is that he just has head and shoulders the roster above everybody else in the NFC. And I'm not even going to go into the AFC because that's a whole nother discussion. But at least in the NFC, there is such a dichotomy between the who's who and the who's not that, does that play into, how much they're having to pre-plan before each game.
Dichotomy. It's a big word. Big question. Which Brock? Brock Purdy or Brock Osborne?
Brock Lesnar.